Dudes, what we're about to do, got my treadmill outside. My dogs may interrupt things with their barking, but I just want to kind of tell you my story of becoming a physical therapist, some of the hardships I went through um, while I'm walking. Also, I've got on my BFR cups. I'm not going to be using them, but I do want to talk about them a little bit. Uh, these are the Saga Fitness BFR cuffs. What they do is they restrict blood flow. It's kind of like a blood pressure cuff. It'll air up and occlude the blood to an extremity, say your arm, or you can get the leg cuffs. Um, what it can help is it can help you increase your strength, help you recover faster, and build some endurance. And by doing that, by doing what it does when it airs up and including the blood, is it puts the extremity that's below it in a more fatigued state, so you can use lighter weights while you're working out and get max benefits instead of using heavy weights and possibly getting injured. So if you want a set of your own Saga Fitness BFR cuffs, use the link in the description, maybe in the description. If not, it's going to be on our page, and that's all right. You can click it through there. See, some dogs are crazy. So let's go ahead and get this started. If you would like to join me and walk with me, do it. It's going to be great exercise. Walking is one of the best things that you can do. So let's get this started. Let's see, let's use just walk at a moderate pace. Just something to get the blood flowing, okay? All right, where do we begin? Let's go back to going into college. So, as I was going into college, I had the idea of wanting to be a physical therapist because my mom was a nurse. She had been around physical therapists before, and she thought that I would be a great personality fit. Also, what I had in my mind was becoming something like an orthopedic surgeon. And at the time, that sounded great. For one, you'd be doing surgery, and a lot of people like orthopedic surgeons. Two, you'd make a buttload of money, which is also great. But anyway, I had those two goals in mind, with the orthopedic surgeon being the top one. Physical therapy was just kind of in there. I had been injured playing sports in high school, so I knew that there was a need for rehab, but I never went to therapy myself. I was rehabilitated. So I started college at ULM, University of Louisiana at Monroe. I was a war hawk, and I decided to go to be in the biology program. So it was basically biology and chemistry it was the track for med school. My advisor said that would be best, it looks best on your applications, so that's what I went for. Did that, went through all of my classes. I was excelling, I was acing exams, not all of them. And then I started talking with some of the other students who were going to med school, and they were getting prepared for the MCAT, and other people were getting prepared for I believe it was the PCAT, pharmacy. And that was daunting. Knowing that you were about to take like a 5 to 7 hour exam. And I wasn't good at taking tests. I wasn't a good generalized test taker, I guess. So that scared me. So I started looking more into what you needed to qualify for physical therapy school. And all they took was the GRE. You had to take the GRE and you had to meet their class requirements. But I stayed in biology and chemistry with the mindset of changing to doing PT. Once I started that, life got a little bit easier. I liked it. See, I'm walking so fast. Got my heart rate up. I may need to knock this down so that I can have more of a conversation with you guys. All right, back to the story. Obviously, I'm not the best storyteller. My kids will have a hard time with their bedtime stories following. Anyway, I started looking at the prereqs for getting into PT school, and you needed to have so many hours of observation. So I started observing at a PT clinic, and like the one day that I was at an outpatient PT clinic, I absolutely fell in love with it. You got to be one-on-one with a patient for 45 minutes at a time. That way you had to engage in conversation with somebody and learn about their life and what they were going through in those 45 minutes. And guess what? They're going to come back to you 2 more times, possibly, during that same week. And they'll be there possibly for a month, maybe longer. So I decided then and there that that is the path that I wanted to take. If that was going to be my career, I would enjoy what I did for a long time. So I decided it was time to buckle down on the classes, made sure that my application was top notch. So I took all of my biology and chemistry classes. I started taking some more kinesiology classes just to have that a little bit more knowledge of it. Didn't have to have it necessarily for PT school. Anatomy and physiology, you're gonna have to know that for physical therapy school. So I started the application process with the mindset of going to the 2 closest schools to home, which at the time was Shreveport, Louisiana, and the University of Central Arkansas in Conway, Arkansas. And I had therapists that I worked with that went to both. Both of them said they were great schools. They were great therapists, so I trusted them. And I ended up applying with my friend who I had gone through college with, and who was also a tech at the same place that I was at. It was a long, grueling process of applications. There were so many different requirements you had to do, certain tests that you had to take, like personality tests, to make sure that you were a good fit for the program. And each of those you had to pay for, which kind of sucked. The one application itself was very expensive. I can't remember exact numbers, but I believe it was over $200 just for the application. But that one application gets sent out to any school that you choose. I'm gonna have to knock this bit down. Let's see, we're gonna take an incline. Let's raise it up. Let's see, and if you wanna walk at the same pace I'm walking right now, that's 2.5. You can do that. You can walk at a 2.5 pace. Set the incline to 4. Also, we're getting really good use out of my wife's treadmill right now. Since we're going through winter, we haven't been outside to use it. We've been doing stuff inside to stay warm. It's not that cold in Louisiana, but here in the past few weeks, it has gone from like 15 to 80 to 20 to 90 to 76 to 15 and back to 8. So it's not a good time to be outside in Louisiana. Anyway, if you want to keep walking with me, I'm at 2.5 with a 4 incline. Let me calm down a little bit. Let's get some water. Might want to check out Saga Fitness BFR Cuffs with the link. It's good stuff. It's real good stuff. Okay, back to the story. Now, at this point, I'd sent my application to those two places, LSU Shreveport and the University of Central Arkansas in Conway, with hopes of getting into Conway because cost of living was cheaper. It was a really nice town. It was a smidge closer to home, maybe like 30 minutes or so. And the therapist that I was working under at the time had gone there, so I felt like I could talk about things with him one-on-one. Well, I ended up getting an interview at both. I went to the one in Arkansas first, and when I got there, you know, I'm looking fly. You gotta be all professional and whatnot. And I'm not good in like group settings of let's have a conversation about statistics or educational programs, but you kind of have to play the part when you're doing an interview with a therapy school. Raising my incline, I don't need to do that. Anyway, but I went to do my interview, and it was me and 2 other students sitting across from 3 of the faculty members. One of the faculty members has written one of the books that gets sent around to all the other PT schools. I can't remember which one. He was a really cool guy. He gave me a fist bump when I walked in, kind of helped boost my confidence, break the ice a little bit. And then there was a lady, and I don't know why, but I don't believe she liked me very much, even though we had never met before. And I'll get to that here in a minute. But we had the interview. It went great. I thought I answered the questions well. We get to we get to the end of the interview and go to stand up, you know, shake this guy's hand, fist bump that guy, everything's cool. And then I go to shake hands with the lady, and she said, "I'm sorry," and like retracted her hand, said, "I have a cold." Okay, well, why are you here? Anyway, kind of shook that off. I knew it was odd. Shook it off. And then, let's see, we go to like this big social gathering of all of the applicants and all of the professors. And same thing kind of happens. I'm around that one woman again, and I'm around my friend because my friend also got an interview there at the same time. And that lady gave my friend the biggest hug. I was thinking, either you really don't like me, or you're sick and you just hugged my friend who is now gonna get sick. So, after going to that school and seeing that I wasn't really welcomed, I kind of put it on the back burner a little bit, but I had one more interview left, and that was at LSU Shreveport. So I went to my interview at LSU Shreveport, and everything went great. I tell you, I'm good at interviews. I'm good at being professional when I need to be. Everything went great. All of my scores were great. They far surpassed what was required, and My application looked great because my grades in school were great, but there was one part of the GRE that I surpassed and didn't really take because I was told that that part of the GRE isn't really scored for what you need. It was a writing portion, and that was my downfall. I got letters back from both schools. At UCA, I was the 76th alternate, which means they had a class of 60, I believe, at the time. That would mean that 2 full classes would have had to have denied their acceptance letter before I got in. And when I called the guy asking about my position, I said, he told me 76, and I was like, you mean like the number 7 and 6? He was like, yes, 76. Oh, well, that one's out of the run-ins. I won't be going to UCA anymore. Now it's just up to LSU Shreveport. I waited for the letter to come, and everybody gets a letter. You either get, you've been accepted, congratulations. You get, congratulations, you're on our alternate list, call to see what number you are, or you get, I'm sorry, you have not been accepted. Unfortunately for me, I got the, I'm sorry, you have not been accepted. So I didn't even make the list, which crushed my confidence because I believed that my application was so great. I had papers written in biology with my name on them. I had discovered my own bacteriophage, which, if you don't know, is a bacteria or a bacteria killing virus. So I discovered my own virus. It's called Angry Orchard, if you want to look it up. Everything about my application is great. So I called the school and I said, hey, what can I do next year to better my chances of being maybe an alternate? And they said, well, you scored like a 1 out of 6 on the writing portion of the GRE, and most of our other applicants scored at least a 3. So if you want to be competitive, at least try to score a 3. So I have been crushed. Confidence is gone. My dogs are running the fence right now. Here they come. There goes my little one. They have friends on the other side, so they're having a good time. We're gonna let them run. Well, I'm building up a sweat, especially in this hoodie. Anyway, at the same time that I'm getting my rejection letters, my friend that I work with is getting her acceptance letter, and that was amazing. She got into LSU. She might have gotten into somewhere else too. I can't remember, but she decided to go to LSU Shreveport, which is a great school. But she got accepted. Some of the other people that I knew that were going to those interviews got accepted into some PT school. It wasn't necessarily UCA or LSU Shreveport. Like I said, I was very happy for them. Very, very happy, because I knew that they were going to be great therapists, and they are great therapists, by the way. But it's very depressing for me, because I had worked so hard and I couldn't understand why I wasn't good enough. PT school is very hard to get into, but I had worked really hard. I had done all of the good things that you needed to do to get in, and I didn't. And it was hard for me to accept that I'm gonna have to wait a whole nother year Gonna have to keep working as a tech, making minimum wage, which for a college student is pretty decent. I'll get to have a little bit more experience being around therapy, which, as I learned, didn't really matter in physical therapy school. I had thousands of hours of experience, and I got told all you really need was the 30 or 60 to meet the requirement. They don't look at anything past that. So I buckled down. I was out of school at this point. I was just working as a tech. I graduated undergrad. I got my master's in biology, minor in chemistry. I was rocking and rolling, knowing everything you could about molecules and bacteria, parasites, every other thing you can think about goes with biology and chemistry. And I was working as a tech. And I started getting my application ready for the next year. We're going to take a little pause there. We're still walking at 2.5, incline of 2. I've been going for 20 minutes now. Again, if you like fitness and not lifting something heavy, but you want to get the benefits of it, try out these BFR Cuffs by Saga Fitness. I've got a link in the description. Also try the code Therapy Dudes at checkout. It is possible that you'll get a 10% off, but I'm not sure. I haven't gotten that bug worked out yet. But getting back to the story, I have now accepted I'm going to have to reapply, and then I decided that if physical therapy is what I want to do, then I'm going to have to spread out my radius of schools to go to. I started looking further into Arkansas, Memphis, Tennessee. So I'm from like the Monroe area. It's a small town called Oak Grove, about an hour northeast of there in Louisiana. So I'm trying to go to neighboring states. Like I said, Arkansas. There were some in Texas, New Orleans, some in Mississippi. I had 7 or 8 applications, and for some of those you had to do the special test that I talked about earlier, personality test that you had to pay extra for to even apply for their program. And those were difficult. May I remind you at the time that I'm a newlywed, living in an apartment. We didn't really make a whole lot of money. Granted, I was a physical therapy tech, made minimum wage. She was actually getting her master's, and she worked at the school as I know she was a tutor. She tutored people outside of that. My wife was a very hard worker and trying to make extra money for us. But yeah, at the time we didn't really have a lot, and I was having to pay extras for the application. And we both said, if I don't get in this year, I may need to find something else to pursue. So I was determined to become a physical therapist. Like I said, I applied to 7 or 8 schools in the outer radius, and then started getting letters back and emails back saying you have an interview. The first one I went to was in Memphis, Tennessee, at their PT school. I enjoyed it. I had family that lived in Memphis at the time, so I would have been able to see them. only bad thing about it though was that it was in Memphis, Tennessee. I didn't really feel comfortable moving to Memphis at the time, or me and my wife moving to Memphis at the time, especially in a new area, not really knowing it. So I did the interview, it went great, and I moved on to the next school. In one weekend, I had, I think it was 2 interviews in Arkansas, one at Fayetteville. It went really well. The one thing I didn't really like about their program so much was that let's increase the incline to 4. What I didn't like about their program necessarily is that the cadaver lab anatomy portion were plasticized cadavers, so everything had already been dissected, pretty much turned into like a plastic for you to be able to look and feel and see. Some of the other programs that I had gone to or looked up had an actual cadaver lab that you would dissect, and that was a big thing that I wanted to do, especially knowing that I had the thought of doing orthopedic surgery. It would be cool to be kind of hands-on with something that's not life-threatening. But I did my interview at Fayetteville, and then that same weekend I went down to UCA once again. Figured I'd try it. If I get in, I get in. I didn't get a good placement. I was much higher than 76 though. I would have gotten in if a few people had turned it away. So I went down to New Orleans, and I really didn't want to move to New Orleans. I have a sister that lives there, so I would have gotten to see her a lot, which would have been awesome. But just New Orleans itself, I didn't want to do the traffic, the games, all of that, and it was attached to a really big hospital med school type thing. I wasn't looking forward to that. So I went into the interview saying, you know what, I'm just gonna relax, I'm gonna have a good time. In the middle of questioning, if I crack a few jokes and they don't like it, it's all right. We started doing the interview, which at the time I did not know was with the dean of the school. She was a very nice lady, but somehow the question came up, and the people that I was interviewing with, gave the very professional, what you want to hear from a PT student. I want to take care of patients. I've done this, and this to help. And for some reason, I decided to talk about the time that I got pulled over for speeding with my loud Camaro. And that just cracked her up. I don't know what about the story cracked her up, but she liked it. And for the rest of that interview, we had more of a one-on-one personal conversation than you're applying to school, what can you do for us type thing. And that meant a lot to me. That made me feel better. But like I said, I didn't want to go to New Orleans. Everything went great. My next and last one, well, no, last one, it's my last interview to go to, was Shreveport, which I really wanted to get into. I had taken the GRE again, like they said, and then on the writing portion, they said I needed to make a 3 out of 6. I ended up making a 4 out of 6 to put myself above the rest, and I think that matched with my laid-back personality gave me a spot. I got an acceptance letter as I was working out at a Planet Fitness. can remember sitting down on the wall. They've got like that stick-on, big rhinestone looking stuff. I can remember leaning up against that, thinking I'd finally done it. Text my parents. My wife was with me. Ended up even calling my preacher and telling him, hey, I got into physical therapy school in Shreveport. He was like, good job, Mickey. I was like, thank you. Keep praying for me. So I finally got in. And that's not even the craziest part of the story. It's because at this time, it was early 2020, January 2020. And for all of you that are old enough that are watching, you'll understand that in just a few months, the entire world shut down. So did the schools. There was a lot of things that once we had been accepted, we had to go through for the school, background checks, drug tests, stuff like that. I had to find ways to get that taken care of. Granted, I'm still working as a physical therapy tech, which slowed down because people can't come in during COVID. We started doing a lot more video calls for patients, and at that time there's really no need for a therapy tech. There's nothing to clean because nobody's been in there, so our time got cut in half, which ended up being a blessing. For any of you that had to do unemployment, you know that they were very gracious with their unemployment checks. We applied as we were supposed to. We did everything like we were supposed to, and thankfully, by the Lord's grace, our money flow didn't stop, even though it was very little. Didn't stop. My wife, she worked overtime at home. Her job, working like 15, 16-hour days, sitting at a fold-out table with a, gosh, what kind of chair was that? I can't even remember what kind of chair we had. We ended up having to buy an office chair for our apartment just so that she could sit up next to the fold-out table because her back started hurting from working so much sitting in her chair. We knew that we were about to have to move to Shreveport, and we had to decide whether we were going to buy a house or rent an apartment. Where do we need to go? We started looking for places, and we decided that it would be cheaper for us to buy a house and start paying towards our house note than it would to be to rent something. So we started looking for houses, and it was about a 3-hour drive to Shreveport, and we came over here a lot to check out houses, which burned up gas money. But we found this guy. He was selling a house, but he was also a realtor. He was flipping the one that we saw him at, and he helped guide us to a small, cozy area known as South Bossier. This is not an old neighborhood, but it's an older neighborhood. Very quiet. It's nice. I can remember the day that we found our house. It was a Sunday. We had just woken up. We were about to get ready for church. You know, just scrolling through Zillow and Realtor, and we came across this nice house. It was out of our range. A few thousand. Not astronomical though. But inside looked nice. That's what we were looking for. And we called our realtor and he said, hey, if you can get over here, we'll look at it. And that's what we did. We came and looked. And it was, as soon as we walked over the threshold, we knew this is the house that we wanted. We ended up buying it for the price they were asking because they didn't come down, unfortunately. Let's speed this up. But we bought the house, and then we ended up getting, since it was during COVID, we got a really good rate. Our house payment was very low. Our next big hurdle to go over is going to be my wife's job. Since I was about to be going to PT school, I wouldn't be able to work. And once again, we had another blessing, which was her ability to move to Shreveport remotely and continue working. That was very big. My wife could keep her job, move to Shreveport, work remotely while I went to school. Things just started to click. I didn't get into school when I wanted to get into school. I thought I needed to get into school. But I got into school when I was supposed to. Our house was taken care of. Our financial situation was taken care of. My wife's job situation was taken care of. And now I have a friend that's a year ahead of me at LSU Shreveport in physical therapy school that can help guide me along the way if I need it. I mean, I was in such a sweet spot. We ended up starting school, and it was, May of 2020, everything still locked down. We all had to wear masks. We got sectioned off into groups of 6, and half of the class came later in the day type deal. That way it would limit the exposure if any one of us got sick. So we have gone 36 minutes. If you're watching this, why don't you, do some squats, start walking your house, pacing. Just do something to get your heart rate up, because we're walking. A lot of my neighbors are probably hating me right now because it's 8 o'clock and I'm outside on this thing. So, but started school, everything was great. Really only had 6 friends because we were in groups of 6. I didn't know half of the other part of my class because I'd never seen them before. And we started out in cadaver lab. So I got to do the real cadaver lab. And that, to some people, may be really gross, but when you are trying to study the body and you were able to cut and dissect everything yourself, it makes a big difference in what you learn and what you retain. But we started doing that, and then all of a sudden, one of the students in my group, they caught it. They caught COVID. And I can remember the sinking feeling of not knowing if we had it, if I was going to spread it, if I had it, if I was going to spread it to my wife. I wouldn't be able to go home and see family. So what they ended up doing is we did our quarantine for 2 weeks. We had to take our classes online, and when we went back, we had to make up some of the in-person stuff. So my group of 6 had to start going every day all day long. And I can remember one day specifically, we learned everything from the top of your head to the tip of your toe, every bony prominence. I mean, we learned it all. It was so exhausting, but it was also fun. And I got to experience that with the 5 others in my group. But as it happened, restrictions started coming off. We were able to join that one half of the class that I had never met before. After we were like a year into school, gatherings started happening again. Everything got more fun. School, PT school, I would say it was tough. If you're wanting to go to PT school, understand that there's a, I don't know, it is stressful, but there's a healthy level of stress that comes along with it. You're learning what you want to learn. You're learning how to treat patients. And it's crazy how your mind, things that were so difficult and complex become elementary. And you'll be later on in your classes, there will be so many pieces coming together from what you learned earlier to help you figure out the problem. And that was a great thing about PT school. It taught you how to think through an issue with like 60 things. It's really cool. Anyway, we got down to our last year, and at LSU Shreveport, you do 3 10-week rotations at the end of your school. And my first rotation was at a big hospital. I didn't want to do acute care. I had never done physical therapy in a hospital setting. Just nothing about it sounded fun to me. And then I started my rotation with some of the best people that I've ever met in my life. I enjoyed my 10 weeks so much, and I kept in touch with one of the guys. He was my CI, my clinical instructor. Super cool dude. Super cool dude. And he went to my next rotation. It was also great. I got to do like neuro stuff and learn about dizziness and vertigo. All of this cool neuro stuff. And then I went to my next one, which at the time was in West Monroe, and the goal whenever I got done with school was to move back to the Monroe area. To be closer to family. That was where the clinic was that I had worked at before, and I worked there as a physical therapist. I kept in touch with them. So I wanted my last rotation to be in Monroe or West Monroe, and I went to this really cool place, which taught me a lot about athletes and working with athletes from a physical therapy standpoint, and doing some really intense rehab. And I actually got to treat a lot of the athletes in the area at a really cool facility. Got to know them really well. I enjoyed it, but the hours on that rotation were grueling. Sometimes we get up there at 7, leave at 6. We would see a bunch of people a day, and I knew that's not what I wanted. After doing my acute rotation, I really wanted to do something acute, or the same outpatient clinic that I had worked at as a tech. So, if you would like to hear the rest of my story, you're gonna have to check back later. So that's gonna be it for this one. We walked almost 44 minutes. 1.83 miles. It's not bad, especially while telling my story. So once again, if you want to work out with light weights and still get the benefits of doing something heavy while decreasing your risk of injury, increasing your strength, endurance, speed, you may want to buy some of these Saga Fitness cuffs, BFR cuffs. There's a lot of research behind them, both in a rehab standpoint and an athletic standpoint if you're just an everyday lifter or someone who wants to get healthy, you know. So if you want to get your own, there's a link in the description. Go ahead and check it out. Use Therapy Dudes at checkout. That way you'll possibly get an extra 10% off. So if you want these, click the link, check them out. That's going to be it for this one. That was a good workout.